Get ready, it's another hidden camera classic. And this time, you can take part.
This is very strange.
Wow.
You're playing tricks on me.
Tonight, a question. How observant are you? Watch as we pull the old switcheroo.
Can you help me?
Take the stranger on the street who stops you for directions.
You're up here.
Would you notice if suddenly he morphed into me?
Sorry, what are you looking for?
How about that friendly store clerk behind the counter?
Hi.
Would you notice if you were suddenly talking to someone else?
Okay, here's your $5.
It happens again and again and again. Surely you'd notice the switch during a first date.
Can you just excuse me for 1 second?
Yeah, go right ahead. Were you cold?
Could love really be that blind? Tonight, see for yourself the surprising things we notice, the startling things we don't.
Y'all got me. That's all me. You got me.
We might just get you, too. Did you see that? Good evening and welcome to Dateline. I'm Chris Hansen. You're about to see how our eyes can play tricks on us, whether we realize it or not. Like right now, you might find it a bit unusual that I'm reporting from the White House. Perhaps that's because I'm actually forecasting the weather. Move over, Roker. Or maybe what I'm really doing is hosting Saturday Night Live. Truth be told, I'm just standing here in front of a giant green screen where all kinds of images can be superimposed. It's an old TV trick, one of the many tricks you'll see tonight. Our eyes aren't always as reliable as we think, and sometimes the consequences can be serious. It's an unsettling phenomenon, not seeing what should be obvious. It's in the news all the time. A submarine commander looks through his periscope, thinks the coast is clear, and orders the sub to surface, slamming into a fishing vessel directly above, killing 9 people.
How could I not have seen it?
A crime victim points out her attacker in court with absolute certainty. He's convicted and spends 10 years in prison until DNA evidence proves his innocence.
Eyewitnesses can make mistakes.
Airline pilots think they have an eye on the controls, yet they miss warning signals and fly more than an hour past their destination. How does this happen? How do intelligent, conscientious people miss what's right in front of them? It has to do with the way our brains process information. Tonight, we'll prove that you can't always believe what you see and what you hear, and you'll have a chance to put yourself to the test. It all comes down to the fact that at any given time, our brains are bombarded by all kinds of sights, sounds, and smells. Many happening all at the same time, and it's impossible to consciously think about them all at once. So the brain is designed to filter out the information it thinks is unnecessary for the task at hand. But sometimes there's an error in that filtering process. It happens to all of us at one time or another. Think it couldn't happen to you? Don't be so sure. Consider this. While I was just speaking, you were probably focused on what I was saying, processing the information. Perhaps you were watching closely as I assembled the model of a brain. But there was a lot more going on that you might not have noticed. Let's roll back the tape. Did you notice anything changed while I was talking? First, watch the color of my coat. Here it's tan, now dark blue. Now watch my tie. First it's dotted, then it's striped. Look closely at my shirt. It goes from pink to blue. And finally, look at the background behind me. It starts off black, then changes to dark red. And if you miss the changes, you might be surprised why.
It has nothing to do with intelligence and smarts and education.
We hired psychologist Dr. Michael Shermer, editor of Skeptics magazine, to help explain why our brains sometimes deceive us.
It has to do with our emotional brains that really, it turns out, run a lot more of our behavior than we like to acknowledge. We're pretty irrational.
Shermer says there are many ways our brains can play tricks on us. Like the illustration above, it has to do with the way our eyes take in information.
Nancy, how are you, Nancy?
We invite a group of people to this theater and ask them to do several tasks. First, we have them look at some photos. It's a test to see if they'll see what's truly in front of them, or will their brains trick them.
What do you think about this one?
You at home can follow along. Take a good look at this picture. What do you see?
I immediately thought it was a woman's butt, but just as soon as I thought that, my mind tried to see it as something else.
It looks like she's coming out the shower and she has like velvet pants that she's pulling off.
Just about everyone in the audience saw a woman's backside. So what are we really looking at?
It's a famous shoe ad. This is the Via Uno sandals. That's just 2 feet side by side. Those are the heels.
Give us the wide shot there.
Yeah.
So why do we see something titillating when it's just part of a foot? Dr. Shermer says it's because the brain is always on the lookout for something it can easily recognize.
So the way the brain works is that we have models in our brain of the way the world is, and then as the data comes in, we force it to fit the model.
What do you see when you look at this?
I thought I was looking at maybe an actress back in the 20s or the 30s, maybe like a Mae West.
Most of the audience saw a face of a woman. Do you know what it really is?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Grilled cheese sandwich. Yeah. A parent's face is usually the first thing we're able to make out when we're born. And Dr. Shermer tells us that impulse to recognize the pattern of a face continues as one of our most primal instincts.
You can't help but not see the face. Because to see a face, you only need 3 data points: the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And even a grilled cheese sandwich, which, by the way, Chris sold for $28,000 on eBay.
This sandwich?
Yep, that sandwich. It is now in a Las Vegas casino. You can go see it. I've seen it. It's under glass.
It can be very amusing, but it turns serious when we add special importance to things that aren't there to begin with.
We see UFOs, we see conspiracies, we find patterns, meaning, belief. We can't not believe things.
For instance, what if someone wanted to exploit our tendency to see patterns for religious purposes? What do you see in this image?
I see a distorted Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. Once she points out that it looks like Mother Teresa, most of the audience sees it too. It's a cinnamon bun.
It's a cinnamon bun discovered by a Tennessee baker in 1996, who has since put it on a T-shirt. You can get the T-shirt of it, and so but a lot of people flocked to his bakery shop. This was in the news. It was a big story for a while.
In this one, many people see the face of Jesus.
So here's like the beard and the long hair, and the nose and the eyes.
Now that we've mentioned it, do you see it too?
It's a tooth filling, actually, a large X-ray.
The ability to see patterns with our eyes is one thing, but combine what you see with what you're hearing and watch what happens.
Music. I want to know what you think of the song.
Follow along with our studio audience. We've asked them to listen to this new age song with creepy lyrics.
So here we go. Well, it's probably not the cheeriest song in the world, maybe, but yep, go ahead.
I really liked the sound of the music. That it was interesting to me, and I don't know, I could listen to that at home, but the words then creeped me out.
Several audience members said they were bothered by the lyrics. Some of you heard references to Satan, but they're in for a surprise because what they were hearing weren't lyrics at all. It was just noise. In fact, it was actually one of the greatest rock songs of all time, Stairway to Heaven, played backwards. Yet when printed words are shown along with the backwards music, the brain tries to fit the words it's seeing with the sounds it's hearing.
And she's buying a stairway to heaven.
What's going on here is it's a bunch of random noises, but by priming everybody with a visual, then the audio patternicity kicks right in, and you hear those particular words.
With the words up there, were you actually able to hear those references in the song? Yes. So the power of suggestion can be so strong you can hear words that don't exist. And if we're able to fool ourselves, it should be no surprise that others can fool us too.
This is how con artists operate. That's how we get suckered into things. We're just talked into seeing the world in a different way. Go!
And we'll be showing you more illusions. They may look like they're playing basketball. Is that all that's going on?
Oh, you didn't see it again? How is that possible?
All right, so we're going to have one more little task for you here to do.
Dr. Shermer, a psychologist, is working with our studio audience to try to illustrate how our brain can be so focused on one task it will block out what's right in front of us.
This is a live performance. We actually have a real basketball team here. It's called the 4-6 NYC. It's a charity basketball group.
There are 4 players dressed in white shirts and 4 in black shirts.
This side of the room, you're going to count out loud the number of passes of the 4 black-shirted team members. And this side of the room is going to count the number of passes of the 4 white-shirted team players. And you're counting out loud. So
you can try this at home. Try to count the number of passes the white shirt team makes.
Are you guys ready? Go!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20,
and stop! That's it. Yep. All right. Excellent. How'd they do?
So how many did you count?
4-6 NYC. How many did you guys get? 18. How about this side? How about 25, 26?
Everyone was so busy counting passes, most missed something right before their eyes.
And did anybody see anything unusual in the middle of this scene? So let me just see a show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 out of our 40 or so.
Did you at home see anything unusual?
Surprise any of you to learn that there was a man who walked right across the middle, spun around, and waved to you all?
That man was me.
So raise your hands if you didn't notice me walking through the basketball court.
Wow.
So you didn't see that great disco turn from the 70s? Oh, it's pretty good.
There were a few who did see me. For everyone else, we play it back. Amazingly, one woman doesn't see me the second time either.
So somebody didn't see it on the tape? Oh, you didn't see it again? How is that possible? Do you consider yourself an observant person?
Apparently not.
It may seem surprising, but a researcher at the University of Illinois has been studying this phenomenon for years.
Psychology, it's Dan Simon's inattentional blindness research. It's important research because what it shows is that our brains are finely tuned when you are instructed to do so, to focus on one thing, and you're likely then miss something really obvious.
So many folks were so intently focused on counting,
yes,
that they didn't even see me waltz right through the room and do a turnaround.
And it can have serious consequences. Remember those airline pilots who apparently thought they could check their new flying schedules on their laptops and still keep an eye on the plane's controls? Instead, they flew past their destination.
That's an example of this inattentional blindness, where you're attending to one thing so focused that you miss something big, like the alarms going off or just look out the window.
What happens when you're so focused on texting or talking on the phone while you're driving?
You miss the big picture.
And there are many ways you can miss the big picture. It's all about how our brains focus. Consider this. A driver crashes into a motorcycle and swears she never saw it, even though the motorcycle was clearly visible. The driver's focus was on avoiding other cars. Since she wasn't expecting to see a motorcycle, her brain blocked it out. And what about that fatal collision we mentioned earlier between an American submarine and a Japanese fishing vessel? Even though the commander checked his periscope, he never saw the ship directly above him.
How could I not have seen it? And how did I not know this vessel was here?
Turns out the commander had checked his instruments, which indicated there were no ships in the area. He was so focused on that information that he missed what should have been clearly visible. How strange can it get?
Wait, but where am I right now? Oh.
Would you notice if a woman standing right in front of you suddenly turned into a man? Don't be so sure.
This is 50th Street. Grand Central, it's 5 block down.
All right.
Coming up, there's something strange.
Well, you're up here.
About this stranger asking for directions.
Sorry, what are you looking for?
When Dateline continues.
I immediately thought it was a woman's butt.
We've been showing you how our eyes don't always take in what's right in front of us. How we can be tricked into missing key parts of the big picture. Here's another example.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Can you help me?
This woman, Amy, is asking a random person on the street for directions. Without warning, they are rudely interrupted by a gigantic poster of me.
Where is it?
The man doesn't notice he's now speaking to a different person.
It's an N6.
It's like 20 blocks or 15 blocks that way.
Watch, we'll do it again.
Sorry, would you be able to get me to the Empire State Building?
This time we ask a woman for directions.
I think we're right here.
Let me see.
After a few seconds, we make the switch.
I'm sorry. Keep going which way?
Let me see.
She doesn't notice either. Okay, so maybe we are stacking the deck a bit. The women do have similar hair and are wearing the same dress. What will happen if we switch a blonde with a brunette who's wearing totally different clothes?
Do you know where the subway is? Like if I go to Grand Central Station, how do I get on there?
Here comes the poster, and the women switch places.
What am I doing here?
The stranger keeps on giving directions.
Her mind has already formed an image of what the person looks like, and she's not expecting some other image to suddenly appear there, because that never happens in the real world. So the brain just processes that and moves on to the next thing.
Excuse me? I'm sorry. Can you help me? Sure.
I don't even need the map.
Oh, okay. I need to go to like Grand Central Station.
The next woman gets so annoyed about being interrupted by the poster.
Sorry. That was rude. Can you tell me exactly where I'm going?
Okay, so...
She doesn't notice she's now talking to a woman who looks completely different.
Sir, can you help me?
Now let's really mix it up. A woman starts asking for directions. Here comes the poster.
Wait, but where am I right now? Oh.
And now a man takes her place. Our subject looks puzzled for a second, but continues to give directions.
This is 50th Street. Grand Central is 5 blocks down.
All right.
Of course, not everyone was fooled.
So, you were saying? How do you get there? So you were saying?
I think...
Sorry. Can you tell me where I'm going?
Where you go? I have no clue where you're going. I know you interrupted the conversation I was having with that lady, but that's okay.
It could be size difference. It could be they were just looking at a certain way, or they weren't paying attention to what was being said. They were noticing how the person was dressed, and all of a sudden they're dressed differently. Most people, most of the time, don't notice it, but every once in a while somebody does.
Now it's my turn to give it a try.
Excuse me, Union Square, how do I get there?
Union Square.
A Dateline intern starts asking for directions. Then I step in. Will she notice I took his place?
Oh my goodness.
What?
You're playing tricks on me.
You noticed. You're pretty observant.
Yeah, because I'm about to face.
You had to walk, actually, let me think.
What about this woman?
This is 50th.
Excuse me? Sorry.
She keeps right on giving directions.
That way?
Yes, like 2 avenues.
And this is the Waldorf Astoria?
How is this possible?
Well, how many times does Chris Hansen suddenly appear in your scene standing there right before you? I mean, almost never. And so why would anybody expect that? So this is the power of expectation.
Well, you're up here.
We try it 2 more times.
Sorry, what are you looking for?
Well, I was trying to get to the Waldorf Astoria.
Now it's upside down.
Oh, okay.
The man notices the map is now upside down, but keeps giving directions even though I wasn't the person he started the conversation with.
Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC. Can I just tell you something?
Chris Hansen, hi.
We're doing a little social experiment today.
Okay.
Did you realize there was a switcheroo? Not so sure.
With my memory these days, I figured I thought of you wrong. You know,
you're being a good Samaritan, giving somebody some directions.
Yeah.
Great.
Looking for Union Square?
One last time.
I'm sorry.
14th Street, Union Square.
Now, should I walk or take a cab?
Take a cab is faster.
Cab's faster?
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a pretty observant person? Did you realize that I'm not the first guy you were giving directions to, that when the poster came by, we switched?
Oh, you're
This is an example of change blindness, where you do not expect something that big to happen in the environment, that kind of change, because that never happens.
It's funny to watch, but our brain's inability to sometimes accurately interpret what it's seeing can have very serious consequences. Imagine you're an eyewitness to a crime. Would you be able to pick out the criminal? We'll be pulling people off the street to see how accurate they are. How positive are you?
100%.
100%.
100%.
Coming up,
Can you sign this for me, please?
we go retail with one surprising detail.
Thank you. I'm just going to get your survey.
Someone new behind the counter.
Okay, here's your $5.
Do you know how to get to Union Square?
Yes.
We've been showing you how our eyes may not be as reliable as we think.
Actually, from here, this is.
While this example may be amusing, what it can mean in the real world is no laughing matter. Take the story of Ronald Cotton, convicted of 2 rapes and burglaries in the mid-1980s.
I picked out my rapist.
After this woman picked him out of a lineup, he was convicted and locked away for 10.5 years. It took DNA evidence to prove his innocence.
I'm here to tell you that eyewitnesses can make mistakes.
This is a photo of the real rapist, and this is a photo of the man wrongly accused. Would you have made the same mistake? Experts in this field say you probably would.
We are not reliable memory machines. All this information is flowing through our senses. 99% of it, we just flows in, flows out, it's gone.
To test the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, we're here at a Mailboxes Etc. in New York City, about to do another demonstration. Just like the 2 men who resembled each other in that criminal case, we're using 2 Dateline interns who also resemble each other, but are clearly not twins. One woman is taller and has shorter hair. The other woman has freckles, and her shirt is a different color. You probably think you could tell them apart, but under the right circumstances, we're betting you couldn't. Just watch.
Hi. Will you just sign this, please?
This woman has agreed to fill out a survey concerning the recent oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. Our first intern, Blake, takes her form.
Thank you. Let me just get your survey.
Then she drops down behind the counter to get a survey. But she's not the person who pops back up. It's actually the other intern, Sophia.
Can you just fill this out in the bathroom, please? Thank you.
Did the woman notice she's now interacting with a totally different person? Apparently not.
Hi.
How about this man?
Would you mind signing this first, please?
I sign my life away.
No. Okay.
Blake has him sign the consent form.
Thank you. I'm just going to get your survey.
Okay.
And again, she drops down, and Sophia appears.
Here's your $5.
Thank you.
And survey.
All right.
Can you just fill it out in the back, please? Just right around that corner there.
He doesn't notice, and it's not because he didn't look each woman straight in the eye. Here he is looking right at Blake, and then when Sophia takes her place, he looks right at her, but his brain is simply not realizing that they are 2 different women.
Hi.
This next woman, we find out later, is a Harvard grad who scored a 1600 on her SATs. Will that make a difference?
Okay, how long does it take?
She looks right at
really
Blake.
quick. Thank you. I'm just going to get your survey.
Okay. Is it cool if I start mailing this stuff?
Then right at Sophia. No reaction.
If you could just fill it out around the back, please. Just right around the corner there. Okay, thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC.
I asked the Harvard grad about her experience.
What did you notice about the young woman at the counter when you walked in? Anything at all?
Not really.
And as is often done in criminal cases, I show her a photo lineup and ask if she can pick out the woman she just saw in the other room.
I'm gonna go with her first choice and her second choice.
She picks Blake first, then Sophia.
You are absolutely right, except about one thing. There were actually 2 different women. So one actually took the document, bent down, and it was a different woman who stood up.
Really?
You picked the right 2.
Whoa.
You just didn't realize it was 2 different women.
2 different people. Hi, I'm Sophia.
So we introduce her to the 2 women.
So does it surprise you seeing them together that you didn't tell the difference?
It surprises me now, yes.
We try it again.
Hi. Can you sign this for me, please?
This man signs the form.
Let me just get your survey. Thank you. All right, great. Got your survey here. $5. Can you fill this out in the back for me, please?
Yeah, no problem. Just right back here on
Yeah,
the corner?
just go right around the corner.
You got it. Thank you.
Yep.
And has no clue that the women switched.
Do you think you would recognize the young woman to whom you talked at the counter?
Yes, I would, I think.
How convinced are you?
80% chance.
Jack, will you look at a lineup for me?
Sure. I would say top left corner.
He picks Sophia, the second woman he spoke to.
Did you see anything strange while you were talking to the young woman? Did you notice anything?
No.
Well, let me tell you something, Jack. This was the first woman you talked to. And this was the second woman you talked to. There were actually two.
That is ridiculous. Wow.
What does that say?
That says that I wasn't paying very close attention. You take what's in front of your eyes and they're not supposed to lie to you. But obviously they can.
We tried the switch 7 times, and even though the participants had encountered 2 women, they still believed they'd only met one.
Which one? Point it out for me.
When we asked each person to pick out the woman they thought they'd met from our group of photographs, 3 picked out Blake, 3 picked out Sophia. Then there's this woman.
Did you notice anything odd between the time she bent down to give you the survey and the time she stood back up?
No.
Same girl.
Same girl.
Positive?
Yeah.
How positive are you?
100%.
100%.
100%.
But watch what happens when I ask her to pick out the woman she just spoke with.
I don't think any of them.
You don't think any of them?
No.
It's time to explain the trick to her.
This young woman is the one you first talked to. When she bent down, it was this young woman who stood back up. 2 young women.
Okay.
Then I introduce her to the women in the photos.
Can you tell the difference now?
Yeah.
And when this man looks at the photo lineup, he picks out a completely different woman.
I say the one on the bottom.
This one right here?
Yes.
How certain are you?
I'm pretty certain. I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
And what does he think when he meets the women?
Hi. Thank you for tricking me.
Can you tell the difference now?
Yes.
Everyone was surprised they didn't notice the switch.
Oh, interesting. There were actually 2 young women, you see? We played the old switcheroo on you.
Wow.
Did you have any inkling at all?
Not at all, actually.
Obviously, Blake and Sophia have some similarities, but we wanted to take it a step further. We tried it one more time using a Dateline staffer, DJ, who bore absolutely no resemblance to Blake.
Hi. Can you sign this for me, please? Thank you. I'm just going to get your survey.
Blake takes the survey and ducks down. Here comes DJ.
Okay, here's your $5. Survey. Could you go around the corner and fill that out for me, please? Thank you.
Is it possible he was fooled? I asked him to describe the woman he met at the counter.
She seems like an attractive woman. Brown hair.
Brown hair. Age?
She seems like mid-20s, maybe?
Mid-20s.
When I show him the photos, he picks Blake, the first woman he saw.
Well, you're half right.
Am I?
That was the young woman you talked to first.
Yes.
But I want to introduce you to somebody else. This is the first woman you talked to.
When we show him Blake and DJ side by side, he doesn't believe us.
It's true.
Is that really true?
It's true. We have it on video. I watched it.
Can I watch it?
Sure.
So we show him the videotape.
Oh my God. I didn't believe it at first, but I guess I have to now.
Of course, these were brief encounters. But what if you were really trying to get to know someone, like on a date?
I'm Jeff. What's your name? Paulina.
Could someone possibly miss the old switcheroo?
Give me 1 second. I'm really sorry.
Coming up, what if it happened to you? Your date makes a dash.
I'll be right back.
Sorry, Aaron.
It's okay. So where are you from?
And someone new takes his place. Would you notice? When Dateline continues.
Hey everyone, welcome to On Speed Dating, and we have a Best of Both Worlds event tonight.
OnSpeedDating.com has invited us to set up our cameras and shoot tonight's speed dating event at the Watering Hole in New York City.
So the way it's going to work, how many of you have speed dated before? Raise your hands.
All the daters know they'll be on TV, but of course they don't know the whole story.
Everyone here is going to meet everyone here. You're going to have 3-minute dates, so it's going to be really quick.
This man, Jeff, will meet each woman here tonight.
It's like the hot seat right here.
A woman will sit down at his table and he'll have about 3 minutes to speak with her before the bell rings and another woman sits down.
Victoria.
But his speed dates will be a little unusual because a few minutes after each date begins, he's going to switch places with another man, Spencer. Take a close look at the men. A lot about them is different. Their height, their build, their hair. Will any woman be fooled?
Have you done this before? Have you done
I've done this before, yes.
First up, Maria.
Hold on 1 second. I'm getting a phone call real quick. I'll be back in a second. I promise.
Jeff gets up and goes behind the curtain. Here comes Spencer.
I'm so sorry.
Why do you look different all of a sudden? This is very strange.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is really frightening. The other man was a different man sitting here. I know he was a different man sitting here.
Maria is not buying it.
You're playing games on me.
Let's try it again.
Nice to meet you. How's it going? So we fill out, this is my first time speed dating, so, okay, so we can go through it together.
Now it's time for the switch.
My boss keeps bothering me. Be back in a second. Sorry.
I'm really sorry. So what part of Mexico are you from? Are you kidding me, Edna?
You sound different too.
While she clearly noticed the switch, she politely goes on with the date.
What part of Mexico?
I was born in Mexico City.
Okay.
So far, the women don't seem to be fooled.
Give me 1 second.
But we only have 3 minutes.
I know. 1 second.
My bad. So do you actually check names off and whatnot? So I'm going to put an asterisk next to you, Chris, saying, went to bathroom.
You're not the same person.
She hates me. Is that fair? Chris.
Let's see what happens with this next woman.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing?
Fine, thanks.
I'm Jeff.
Aaron.
Spencer excuses himself.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem too pleased. When the other man comes back and sits down,
Sorry, Aaron.
No, it's okay.
Anyway,
So where are you from?
I'm new to this whole speed dating thing.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
don't know much about it.
apparently she doesn't have any idea that she's now sitting across from a completely different man.
I'm from New York, born and raised.
This next woman can't believe he's leaving in the middle of a 3-minute date.
Go to the bathroom.
I'm going to.
You are?
I'm really sorry. I feel like a jerk. Give me a second.
He returns. She doesn't notice. She's now talking to a different man.
Sorry, Lindsay.
That was fast.
Yeah, my bad. So you live in the city now?
No.
All right,
It was
Lindsay.
nice meeting you.
We try the switch 10 times.
He changed.
5 women immediately say something.
Well, you're not the same Jeff who was sitting here.
Some seem puzzled. And 3 appear to have no idea, like this woman.
Give me 1 second. I'm really sorry.
Sorry, man. My boss is a little demanding at times. So you went to college in Moscow?
No, I lived in Sweden for the last 10 years.
Now it's time to let them in on our switcheroo.
So you met Jeff. Hey, Spencer, come on out. This is Jeff number 2 right here. So are you a little freaked out right now?
I'm very freaked out. I'm very freaked out.
Why do you think you didn't pick up on it?
I don't know. Maybe it's like nerves being in the situation where you're not making complete eye contact.
Maybe you're not expecting anything like this could happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm completely embarrassed that I didn't.
No, I'm more embarrassed.
No, I mean, come on. Living in New York City, like you have to be very aware of your surroundings.
What's the lesson here for you?
Stay single.
And what about for you?
This woman also admits she didn't notice the switch.
Since he was like my first date, so I was a little bit nervous, I guess, and didn't pay attention at all.
You might not be all that surprised that several of the women did notice.
Your hair is different. and your voice is different.
Now it's the men's turn. When it comes to noticing an attractive woman, would it be possible to fool any of them?
Just excuse me 1 sec. I won't be long, I promise.
Does everyone have a pamphlet and a pen?
We're back at the watering hole in New York City for another round of speed dating. This time, instead of a man switching in the middle of a date, it will be a woman.
How many of you guys have actually done speed dating before? Raise your hand. Woo-hoo!
Nicole will start the date, and after a minute, she'll excuse herself, and Amy will take her place. Look at the women side by side. Clearly, they look more alike than the men we used in the previous demonstration. But notice they are different heights. They have different shaped faces, and their eyes are a different color.
The way it's going to work is you want to ask your dater about you, write the name down, take notes, because you're going to be meeting everyone at super fast speeds.
Will any of these men notice they're speaking to two different women?
So we're about to start. I hope everyone's ready.
Nicole is about to begin her date. The other woman, Amy, is hiding around the corner.
What's going on?
The date will last 4 minutes.
You want a drink?
No, not today.
After 2 minutes, Nicole excuses herself.
Oh, sure, here, go ahead.
A minute later, here comes Amy. Will he notice he's now talking to a totally different woman?
Right?
Fine. So you must have a lot of fun with your brother living so close.
No, you guys aren't the same people.
What?
I see what's nice. You guys aren't the same people.
I don't know what you're talking
You guys are not the same people.
This man noticed the switch and couldn't be convinced otherwise.
No. That's funny, but no.
So we tried again.
Where are you from?
I'm from Australia.
Australia?
Nicole makes her move.
Can you excuse me for 1 second? I just want to... Sorry about that. Do you surf?
Do I surf? Not anymore.
He keeps right on talking, apparently not realizing he's with a different woman.
I think our time's up.
Peace out.
Nice meeting you.
The next man is taken with Amy from the start.
This is definitely... Oh, thank you.
Will he notice that the awesome hazel eyes he's been looking at will soon be blue?
Could you excuse me just a
You
minute?
can do whatever you want to do.
I'll be right back, I promise.
No, you know what happens. So I'm putting when they leave after the first minute, it's probably not the best sign.
I lost points. Did I lose points?
Listen, I don't even know how to judge. You're a gorgeous girl. You're awesome.
He has no idea he's now speaking to a different woman with different color eyes.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. Thank you.
This time when we make the switch,
Yeah, go right ahead.
the other woman arrives wearing a jacket.
I'm sorry. So what you doing,
Were you
Sam?
cold?
Yeah, I had to go get my jacket. I have another jacket in the coat room. And
He notices the new jacket,
Have you ever been married?
No, never married. You?
but apparently not the new woman.
I still think it's somewhat romantic to think that someone's out there.
Next, when they trade places,
Excuse me. Yeah,
sure.
Don't write any notes.
I will. Date is great.
Don't write. I'm sorry.
the new woman shows up wearing the jacket and a hat.
So, what are you looking for in a woman?
Happy, healthy, fun to be with, pretty. Basics.
All that good stuff?
Yeah.
No reaction to the new woman or the new accessory. Date after date and switch after switch,
All right, would you just excuse me for 1 second?
Insist, of course.
I'm sorry.
No, of course. No worries.
no reaction. 8 out of 9 men went right on with the date. Why were so many fooled? It's another example of change blindness.
Our brains are not designed to notice things like that, because if you noticed every single little thing that changed in the environment, you'd never get out of the restaurant. You'd be there for the rest of the night.
Did any of you guys notice something odd about this table over here? Come here, tell me about it. What'd you notice?
It was 2 different girls.
How did you know that?
Because I knew it was 2 different girls.
But most of the men admit they had no idea.
Now, Ray, It looked like you didn't pick it up, did you?
Not at all. Not at all. I noticed when she went to the bathroom, and I'm like, wow, I totally failed on this date right here.
Ari, did you pick this up?
Not at all.
I won't be long, I promise.
The men seemed amazed that they missed what should have been obvious.
You knew you had only 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So you kind of lost sight of the fact that it was a different woman.
Yeah, just trying to figure out what to ask him and find out about them.
I shouldn't have looked at her chest and maybe more at her eyes. No, y'all got me. That's all me. You got me.
What's the takeaway here?
The take-home message from this kind of research is that we really need to be pretty skeptical and cautious about what we think is true, because often we are deceived and even self-deceived by the way our belief systems work.
Looking for a unit square?
So as we make our way through the world, observing what's around us,
I'm sorry. Now, should I walk or take a cab?
Remember, our brains can be sending us wrong information.
It's a famous shoe ad.
So the next time you're positive about what you think you saw, take a moment to reconsider. Because as we've shown you, what you think you see is not always what you get.
Wow. All right.
You'll find some more tricks of the eye on our website. Just log on to dateline.msnbc.com.